to actually prefer YouTube over Facebook anyway.
I hope you can carry everything, because there was a lot.
Yep, that's what's up. All right.
Bye-bye, sir.
Okay. Hey, take care. God bless.
Amen.
Amen. Hallelujah. Okay. We're good. Say when.
It's coming.
Okay. I'm driving.
Good day and welcome to Momentum, a stewardship idea. This show is brought to you by The Faith Church, located at 2680 64th Avenue in East Oakland, California. The Faith Church believes that we should celebrate faith one day at a time. The purpose of Faith Church is to create a transformational and secure experience for all people. We want to reach people where they are because we know that everyone deserves the right to celebrate their lives. Go to our website at www.fbcoak.org. That's www.fbcoak.org. And be brought up to date on all our virtual activities. This show is also brought to you by the Faith Missionary Services, Inc. Established in 2000, the Faith Missionary Services, Inc. is a public benefit corporation. We are currently featuring the Georgia Otis Food Pantry and partnering with the Alameda County Community Food Bank. Named after one of the co-founders of this organization and partnering with the Alameda County Community Food Bank, we have our weekly giveaway at 2680 64th Avenue in Oakland, California. Our food giveaway begins every Wednesday at 8 a.m. and ends at 12 p.m. That's the Georgia Otis Food Pantry, first responders in a COVID-19 culture. And now our host, Curtis O. Robinson.
All right. Hello to all my friends out there in YouTube land, as well as in Facebook land and any other land. Home of the free, land of the brave, something like that. I probably messed that song up. But again, my name is Curtis O. Robinson Sr. I'm your host for today's segment of Momentum, a Stewardship Idea. And obviously, with salt and pepper and earth and water, the whole 9 yards, up and down, in and out, I want to introduce my co-host, my brother from another mother, Elder Jeffrey Healy. Hi, Jeff. How's it going, buddy?
Curtis, great week. A lot to celebrate, a lot to remember, a lot to be thankful for, and a lot to continue working towards.
Man, that's awesome, man. You've been busy this week, man. I haven't talked to you as much. What you been doing?
Thanks for asking. Working on launching a fund in providing money for the fastest growing part of the economy. Not going to talk about that fund, but just to say that we are 100% committed to being what's called ESG compliant, which is environmental, social, and governance. We think that that doing right and doing good don't have to be separate. You can do it all together.
You're awesome, man.
Thank you.
I appreciate you. I would just want to be big enough to be like you. How about that?
Love you.
All right. Now you give me energy, brother. You give me energy. And so, again, so we're glad to have, our guest today. He is you see, I'm wearing my Navy hat. It does not mean Nebraska nor Northwestern. It means Navy, the Academy. And we're so glad to have with us one of the graduates, one of the friends, schoolmates of Jeffrey Healy, brother Michael Moore, who's also just completed his MBA was it from Cal Berkeley, I believe, Michael?
No, it's from University of South Carolina.
University of South Carolina. He just got his MBA from the University of South Carolina, which means
Yes.
you never stop learning. Michael, how's it going today, man? I'm glad to see you wearing your mask.
It's going great. It's a blessed day.
Can't,
Blessed days always.
Gamecocks. I
Yes.
got the right color on, but I got the wrong name on the shirt.
isn't USC, that's the real USC. The other one's the University of Second Choice.
Wait a minute, dude. University of South Carolina, man, you better watch it, man. Now you're messing around, man. You in SoCal, man. USC. We gotta do this somehow or another with these names of schools or what have you. So listen, so Michael, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? I'm glad you're wearing your mask, man. What's going down?
Michael. Mike, we're not hearing you very well.
He's frozen.
The beauty of technology. Well, as we wait for him, Curtis, I think the people from Nebraska, it's been said that the guys on the football team think that the N stands for knowledge.
No comment.
Michael, can you hear us? Well, okay. I'm sure he'll be coming back.
Yeah.
So as we wait for Michael to get back, and I'm sure he's going to call right in. There's a I've known this guy. We went to school together. He'll tell you a lot more of his story. There's a guy that we're going to ask him to talk about, a former naval officer by the name of Arleigh Burke. Arleigh Burke was an admiral in the Navy, who was one of, I think, the only admirals to ever serve as the chief of naval operations for 2 terms. So was a man who really put the nation above himself. He was, was a guy that believed and embodied what we're looking for in the nation in servant leadership. And I think Michael might be back. Michael, can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Oh, there he is.
Sorry, we lost you for a second there.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Driving. Well,
No problem, man. We appreciate you being so limber.
So, Mike, I just mentioned Arleigh Burke, Admiral Burke.
right.
If you could, I don't want you to divulge what you don't want to, but can you tell us the conditions of how you met Admiral Burke and some of your recollections of him?
Sure. Was nominated in the Naval Academy. Spent about 2 years in the Naval Academy. I was doing okay. My grades were going okay. Then I started falling down on the field, on the sports field. I just couldn't run and couldn't turn, and so just couldn't keep my balance. Losing my hearing, headaches. Took myself down to the medical unit. Said, "Give me a hearing test." They said, "Why?" I said, "Please give me a hearing test." So I lost 75% of the hearing in my right ear. I said, "What is it?" They didn't know. They sent me to another hospital. They couldn't find out. This was 1975, before CAT scans, before MRIs. They sent me to Bethesda Naval Hospital, now Walter Reed, the president's hospital, where they send the president. And they found that I had a tumor. So one surgeon operated 13 hours. They said had I not been 20 years old in great shape, I wouldn't have survived. And so I was supposed to lose neck down, right side, swallowing, face, just about whatever you name it, eyesight, hearing. So I was supposed to lose all that stuff, or very likely that I would. I came out of it still able to. My neurosurgeon, he screamed at me after the surgery to find out if I could still move things, and I could move. He screamed at me, move your left arm, move your right arm, move your leg, move, and everything moved. And people told me afterwards, my neurosurgeon, he screamed at me after the. Oh, okay. Well, when I was able to move my arm, he cried, and I was told all about this later because I wasn't conscious, and so I was recovering for 5 days in intensive care. Then I ended up in the Tower of Bethesda, where they usually have important people, but somehow I'm there. And I was in the bed, couldn't lift my head, or I get migraine headaches. So that went on for a few weeks, and slowly being able to recover, slowly be able to lift my head, slowly trying to walk. I went through all that stuff, and then after a month, they said, hey, it'd be better if you convalesce at home. Okay, great. So I got on the plane with my mom, went home. Was there for like an hour or so, and then I started breaking out with huge sweat and headaches, and she called the family doctor, and over the phone he said he's got spinal meningitis. Put him on the plane as fast as possible, get him back to the hospital. So that's what they did, and had we not had my family physician not said that over the phone, I would have died. And so I'm back up in the hospital. My neurosurgeon had to give me spinal taps for a month. And first time he jabbed this big needle into my spine, I probably jerked. And he said, "You're a Naval Academy midshipman. You're not a pansy ass." And so that was great incentive. And then I was recovering, while I was getting these spinal taps. And when I was walking again, Admiral Arleigh Burke, who was the highest admiral during Presidents Eisenhower and Kennedy for 5.5 years, the longest of any chief of naval operations, the highest admiral. And he was there on the same floor of Bethesda Hospital. So I had asked permission from the nurses, and they had to ask his wife, and they had to ask the doctors if it was okay for me to see him. And I walked inside, just stepped inside knocked on the door, "Come in," and stepped over. He was in his jury. And he said, "Who are you?" I said, "Sir, I'm Midshipman Michael Moore from the Naval Academy. Why are you here?" "I'm here just to say it's an honor to meet you and to wish you well, sir." He said, "What are you doing now?" I said, "Sir, I'm leaving. And he said, "Why are you doing that?" And I said, "Because the nurses told me I had to leave as quickly as possible." He said, "Don't listen to them. I don't listen to them. Their only job is to make me miserable." He said, "Do you want to talk?" I said, "Yes, sir, if you do." He He said, I want to talk. What do you want to talk about? I said, anything you'd like to talk about, sir. He said, what do you know about the fleet? I said, sir, I wrote a paper how you handle the fleet in the Suez Canal crisis and the Beirut crisis in Lebanon in 1958, how you handle the fleet. He said, oh, that's good. Well, how much do you know about Africa? I said, do you want me to tell you what I did there? I said, yes, sir. So he tells me about how he took the fleet to the Congo and how he talked to the king of Congo, trying to tell him about the Belgians and about the mineral deposits in the Congo and what he would have to do to help the country to be raised, to lift the population, to help the people, to keep the country together, because there were so many outside forces trying to stir up conflicts. So Admiral Burke gave him advice and it was successful. The king thanked him later. And then Arleigh Burke took the ships to India and he spoke with the British Lord Mountbatten, who at the time was, I guess, the minister over India, and advised Mountbatten about Nehru and Indian politics. And so he was telling me all this was like history alive, talking to some of the most important people of that time.
Hey, Michael.
And, yeah.
Want to interrupt you for a second because
I could talk too much. Yeah.
No, it's fascinating and wonderful. There's a friend that Curtis and I have, thankfully because of you, who we're going to ask to be a guest.
Janie Mines.
Yeah, can you talk a little bit about it? And Curtis, you might want to ask Mike about how he met Janie Mines. So, do you want to ask anything, Curtis, or just let Michael tell us about Janie for a second?
Well, I met Janie because her mom was the librarian in our high school, and I went to public high school, and she was wonderful, and she used to let me come and read, and read a lot, and so when I was at the Naval Academy, my first year, they let you go home and recruit. And so I went to my high school and I gave her mom all kinds of information about the academy. And she said, well, I have a daughter and she's interested in going. I said, she should apply. And little did I know, she had two daughters and both of them made it into the Naval Academy. They were nominated and accepted to the Naval Academy. They both graduated. And Janie is phenomenal. I don't know her sister that well, but I've known Janie since that time. And Janie is an extremely strong woman, strong person. I mean, if she were a man or a woman, you'd say she was an incredibly strong person. And the things that she endured, the totally unnecessary and way over the top harsh treatment that she received in the Naval Academy, should have never happened, should have never been allowed. And showing her great strength and her faith, she didn't raise objections to the highest level, you know, saying, hey, this is happening, or she just took it and she dished it back at people. I mean, she gave it back as strong as they gave it, and made them stop quickly every time they tried. And she's a tribute. She's a tribute to every good thing that you can think about a human being.
Curtis, I don't know if you remember the story of her first day at school. There, it's plebe summer, and
So you get the chance.
She gets up to her company area, and some guy laid into her with a very inappropriate screaming at her for the fact that she was a woman, the fact that she was black. What was she doing there? She was wasting the space. And the next thing the guy knew, he was picking himself up off the ground. He had laid him out.
Yeah, she's a black belt. And so they didn't know that.
They did
They
after.
found out.
Well, we're definitely gonna get
She's the first African American female.
Jamie on this
sister,
call
her sister.
for sure. So, so Michael, no, we've had discussions, man, and you've had you really piqued my imagination when you start talking about smart contracts. Can you tell us what are smart contracts?
Oh, there's something similar on the same architecture as internet coinage, bitcoins, and smart contracts. Everyone's heard about Bitcoin and how it rose so fast at a certain period and then fell. And there's been a lot of speculation on this. Smart contracts are an adaptation of the same architecture to use it for a contract on the internet. And that contract preserves the contract that's been made and the transactions that are made under that contract, and no one can modify them. It becomes a permanent living record. And so that's the value from smart contracts. And we've talked about that possibility of using something like smart contracts for communities, and in combination with the idea of cooperatives and credit unions to keep the wealth inside a community and to grow that wealth for generations. That's basically it, Curtis. What else? I'm trying to be more precise in my answers because I know I can talk too much.
No, I mean it's a great conversation because I know you also have a law degree.
Yes.
And
I think he's going to
you're
do
good,
something.
man. You know, you're good. Just keep talking. So how do smart contracts create a space where lawyers are like kind of not needed?
That's wonderful. Isn't that a great invention? I think that's one of the greatest purposes in life. It's to create things so you're no longer needed, and then everybody can just move on and do better things. And you know, for everybody. So I think that's a good thing. You don't need to You don't need lawyers. You don't need people in the middle. You don't, you know, and all these other intermediaries, they take their fees, which is totally unnecessary. And you don't necessarily need a bank to handle the money. So I think all that makes it a much more efficient world and lets people retain more of their own wealth and what they can produce.
You know, the blockchain stuff, just to that point, and things like that. I mean, I have a great fortune of having two kids that are much smarter than their dad, and one of them lives over in Europe. Wonderful young lady. And if I get an email from Laura, I don't go, oh my God, I got an email from Europe. This is amazing. How did that happen? How did those zeros and ones make it all the way across the ocean through the server to my computer? And now I see her words. It's free. It's zeros and ones. Yet we have an international banking system that if somebody wants to send money back home from here to Mexico, from here to South America, the banks charge them 4% and 5%. It's zeros and ones.
Yeah. That's right. That's how they make their money.
Granted,
Yeah.
money's, you know, you got to have some safeguards there, but 4% and 5% to send a 0 and 1? Curtis, what do you think? Curtis?
I think it's excessive.
Curtis, you're muted.
So you asking me what do I think?
Yeah.
So I was mentioning earlier on our pre-call that I've actually started taking a class on cryptocurrency at UC Berkeley, right?
Oh.
Not that I want to become an expert in it, but you know, Michael gave me some very serious revelations, man, you know, about, you know, how this blockchain piece works. And I think that that it's like it's a rabbit that people can pull out of their hat, you know, if they understand it, right? And it's also a liberating rabbit. It's not a rabbit that keeps you oppressed, right? You know, so Michael, we've talked about education, you know, and how to make that move, you know, for oppressed areas in a better way.
Yes.
And you all hear that twice again. We have Michael Moore and Michael Moore.
You got to log one of them off.
No, I love it. It's like, let's stay like that. Which one is the real one? So Michael, I mean, talk about that, man. I mean, you know, if we break this rabbit out of the hat, I mean, what do you think? What's the potential, brother?
Well, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Actually, I think. Oh, okay.
Yeah, just exit. There we go. You're good.
All right. I think you can hear me now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think the potential is how do you keep the wealth you have in the community? I think that's the bottom line. How do you build something, you know, the father, the mother for their children, you know, that the children then have wealth to build from generation to generation so that communities actually get wealthier and healthier. And everything can feed into education, healthcare, well-being, and prosperity. And one of the things I appreciated about this MBA degree was it forced me to read lots of things. And for example, one cooperative called Mondragon in Spain had it, I think within maybe 10, 15 years, they had given birth to 70 industries in one region under one cooperative structure. And the structure was carefully designed so that the cooperatives would not fail. And this is a wonderful model. They have these industries, 70% of the profits are shared among all the employees to go into accounts. 15% goes into the community for community activities, including education. And the remainder is reinvested, and it can be in schools or however, but it's a set structure. The employees have an account, but they cannot cash it in until they retire. They cannot sell the shares to anyone else who's not an employee. So the wealth stays with the community, with the employees, thousands of employees. And this region has just blossomed because of it. I think it's a wonderful model. Cooperatives built around a credit union. Now you add something like smart contracts to that, and to me, in my mind, it expands a local community to a region. And for example, if Oakland had communities that had cooperatives, and these cooperatives were engaged in something, call it food, call it fish, bringing in from the port, from the docks. And your cooperatives in Oakland were linked to the regional industry, whether it be storage, shipment, distributing the fish, distributing the food. Those smart contracts would eliminate the middleman, the intermediaries. And that could mean that you could retain more wealth. So to me, it just adds that maybe that 5% or that 10% and here and there, and the dollars add up. So that's how I see it, integrating it. You got to have something successful on the community level. Then if you want to expand that community level and make it several communities in a region, I look at it as a linkage.
Cool. Michael, this is
Go ahead.
this show is a stewardship moment. Curtis and I regularly talk about matters of faith. We talk about the fact that probably the most segregated place in America is Sunday mornings in churches. I hadn't told you we were going to ask you this question. What, Curtis preached at a church that I attended a number of years ago, and wonderfully he said, I take it under pretty high authority that when we get to heaven, that's going to be integrated. So it's time to start practicing for when we get to heaven. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I think, me personally, I want to be left alone. And so I think other people feel like that too. They just want to have peace of mind and be left alone. And I guess the comment about segregated churches, I don't know. I don't know if I go along with that completely completely with the idea that it's a bad thing. It might be a good thing, bad thing, might be all those things. There might be churches where they don't want anybody who's not among them, and not in the group, who doesn't, they don't get along with, they don't see eye to eye with. I've been in all kinds of situations, and I remember when I was at the VA, Department of Veterans Affairs, Washington, D.C. in headquarters, and they had a celebration for Black what was it, African American Month or Black History Month. They had a celebration in a church. And so some of my friends, they said, "Hey, Mike, we want you to talk." And I said, "Oh, what?" I'm white. "Oh, we want you to talk." And so I said, "You sure?" And they said, "Yeah." So there's some of my friends, and they were men, women, employees, VA, and so I talked and I spoke in the church. I mean, everybody out there, there wasn't that much that was, white or anything, but I talked to them, and I told them, I told them a little bit of my personal experience, and I read to them the poem that was written by Rabbi Gittleson and Normandy, I think it was. And he talked about our blood is red. Doesn't matter what our color is outside. And we are all brothers and sisters. And we're all joined together when we begin, before we're born, and after we pass away. We're all one and the same. And I wish I could tell you exactly from memory more of that poem, but very moving poem. And when I spoke, it really touched me to have the chance to speak to everyone. And I was pretty much, I was in tears a little bit. Well, more than a little bit toward the end. And everybody thanked me so much for what I said, but it just shows you that it's really about what's in your heart. And, churches, okay, it's great, but God's everywhere. And God is in every second. I mean, human beings, we think in terms of seconds, God doesn't. God is everywhere, all time, every place, every person, everything. And it's just what's in your heart. And it's really about accepting yourself, accepting God, accepting everyone else, accepting the gift of life every second, appreciating, realizing it's a treasure, and the chance to give something of yourself to help others. It's really a totally, entirely selfish act, because you feel so good from doing it. I don't feel like I'm being selfish.
That's good, Michael. So, no, that's good. So what are your thoughts on Black Lives Matter?
It's not pure. I wish it were pure, because what I know that's pure is from the heart. And, I know too much about who's given so much money to stir up protesters and pay for them and do all these things, and it being linked to an election and campaign year and all that kind of stuff. And I'm sorry, I was in Washington for over 30 years, and I know how intensely political and shamelessly political a lot of people in that town are. And it's unfortunate, but that's the game. It is a game. And so if you ask me what about Black lives, or what about Black people? And you don't use those words. There's some name for a corporation, Black Lives Matter Corporation. With, you know, ask me two separate things, because the corporation, don't ask me about that. Don't ask me about the tens of millions of dollars that are paid to employees of the corporation. Don't ask me about that, okay? But asking me if Black lives, of course. And it's a sad thing in this country that politics have gotten in the way of doing the right thing too much, too many times, and had too great an effect on our lives. And I wish I could wave a magic wand. And I wish that government did the right thing. And I wish that every child had a good education. And that good education and healthcare from the earliest of ages put everybody on a more level playing field, because the playing field is not level. That, to me, if you had that more level playing field and government helped to achieve that, that would be wonderful. Because to me, if every American had the chance, had a level playing field and had real opportunity, and the real opportunity is to make a life for themselves and to have a family, if they want a family, and for their children to have a prosperity, to have promise. That same thing, generation to generation to generation. And it doesn't matter what nationality, what language, what beliefs, that doesn't matter to me. What matters is that people have fairness. And if that fairness existed, then we would truly be a great country, a much greater country. We've got some good things, but it could be so much better. And I wish that politicians were less politicians. I wish that they were more public servants. And they wanted to serve the public, us, instead of being elected, instead of thinking it's some kind of football game with two teams. You know? That's just junk. And the public opinion of Congress and the public opinion of the president and the public opinion of the courts are like in the teens or the 20s. And that should tell you that people aren't necessarily satisfied with how their politicians are serving them. What a bunch of idiots. Excuse me. I'm starting to get...
Oh, you got the Jeffrey Healy Award. Hey, Healy, go ahead, jump in.
What do you mean you got the Jeffrey Healy Award?
You know, outspoken, that kind of stuff, like, oops, like, I'm sorry, I did say it. They are idiots.
Well, yeah, I'm actually going to talk about that at the very end of the day. I get the editorial today.
Yes, you do. You get the editorial. I can't wait to hear it.
I just want to comment on, Michael, about a couple minutes ago. This program is coming out of a church, and the Holy Spirit was with us during a large part of your conversation. It was very obvious. You could I mean, I sensed it. There was a lift that happens when you allow it. So I thank you for sharing that. As Curtis said, I'll just keep talking until he mutes me. This morning when we were talking at about 6:30, 6:40, you shared a little story, if you would, and we're getting short on time. So Ruth Bader Ginsburg, can you tell us about your experience with that incredible woman?
Sure. I became a member of the Bar of the Supreme Court of the United States in 2005, and oh boy, oh no, sorry. And
I take an
don't
aspirin.
call me.
Not me.
Medication
And,
time. I'm just joking, man. Go ahead, Michael.
and so I was living in a condominium overlooking the Pentagon in Arlington, Virginia. And neighbor a few doors down was Justice John Paul Stevens. And I would see him in the mornings at the elevator, and he'd say, "Oh, hi, how are you? Hi, how are you, Mike? Do you want to ride?" And I said, "Yes, sir." "Oh, that'd be great." And so, we'd get on the elevator, we'd start chit-chatting. And so he'd give me a ride to the metro. And at the time, I was in the VA, and gosh, I don't know, I guess that was in late 90s, early 2000s. And so I would talk to him about affirmative action and about his rulings, his opinions on different cases. And so I came up with my own ideas on affirmative action. I came up with like 7 ingredients. And so I named these off to him. And I used like 3 or 4 of them from his cases, from opinions. And then I threw in like 2 or 3 others from other cases. And I kind of molded it all together. And so I told him this, and I thought, "Sir, would it be all right if I told you what I think the elements are of a constitutionally permissible affirmative action?" He goes, "Oh, yeah. Oh, that would be good. Okay." And so I name off these elements to him, and I say, "And this is from Full of Love, and this is from this case, and this is from," it's just, And so I finished with this, and I said, "Sir, please help me. I'm sure I haven't." He said, "Oh, sounds pretty good." so I used this at the VA, and I actually used it. So anyway, but that's another story. You want to hear about the Justice?
Yeah, let's play off the RBG, man. RBG.
Yeah. So anyway, one morning, I'm streaking down the elevator, going as fast as I can. I get in the sunlight. Then I see that I'm wearing a dark blue coat and black pants. And I'm going, "Oh no, how did I do that? Got the wrong, hadn't got the suit right." So I get in the elevator, race upstairs, change, blue suit, race downstairs, race out the door into the garage. And this car goes, and so this face peeks out from under the windshield, and he goes, "It's Justice Stevens, Supreme Court Justice John Paul Stevens." And he says, "Do you want to ride?" I said, "Yes, sir." So I get in the car, and he goes, "I almost hit you. You got to be more careful." I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Tell me what's going on." I said, "Sir, I'm getting sworn into the bar." He said, "Oh, which bar is that?" I said, "Sir, the Supreme Court." He said, "Oh, that's great. I'll have to remember not to object."
Did he remember? Come on, man. Come on. Tell him about Ruth Bader Ginsburg, man.
Get the RBG.
Come on, Mike.
Come on.
Get there, man. Michael, come on.
Yeah. Well,
Ruth
stories about
Bader Ginsburg.
Paul Stevens. So anyway, so he says I'll have to remember not to object, and so he gives me a ride to the metro, and then I get together with the other people, and then we're all riding in a bus to the Supreme Court to get sworn in to the bar, and then 10 a.m. the court opens, and we file down the middle, and then we turn to the left, and then as it turns out, I'm like one chair in from the middle, and we're standing in our chairs, and then this big clock buzzes, this iron sound, big brass clock hanging from the ceiling. It goes for like a minute, and then the curtains open, and then the justices all come out, and Justice Ginsburg and Justice Stevens and everybody, and you're like, wow. And Justice Stevens is right in front of me, and he's sitting in his chair, and he nods at me, and he smiles. I felt like I was 1,000 feet high. And then afterwards, there was a reception, and Justice Ginsburg came, and Scalia, and I was, there were like 8 or 10 of us who had been sworn in, and we're just listening to her, and she's just amazing. I mean, such grace and such immense intelligence and humility. It's a wonderful thing. And Justice Stevens, I had a chance to get to know him as a friend, and it was the same kind of thing. When you see someone who is so intelligent and has such humility and such grace, it really gives you such a faith in humanity that we have people like this, who can try their best to decide in the best way that'll help the most people what is best for the common good. And
That's great, man. That's great. Hey, so look, man, I just want to tell you one thing, Michael. We have something for you because you've been such an awesome guest today.
Here it is.
Well, that's for everybody else.
Hold it. No, wait.
That's for everyone. Everyone should get applause. Because we're all in this together.
Yes, we are. And I love your story about Justice John Paul
Stevens. Yeah.
That guy impacted you, I can tell, man. And that's a good thing. So listen, Jeffrey Healy is about to give us an editorial, and then we're going to be off.
Thank you, Curtis. Title of this editorial is Citizen or Servant. So about 18 years ago, I decided that it was time to get my body into top physical shape. I had been a college varsity athlete, kept myself in top 5% shape, but now it's time to really push it, to really go for it. I signed up for a spin camp, not a spin class, but a spin training camp. We did 45 minutes of high power speed, followed by either weights, additional cardio, or swimming. We did this every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, beginning at 5:45 a.m. Class ran about 90 minutes, after which we would all both gasp and in some cases glisten. We all read the runners. We all achieved that runner's high and connected as a team. What made it even more meaningful for me was the understanding that I was choosing to do this. I could quit whenever I desired. I didn't quit. And the mental reward was even greater than the physical. The leader of the camp, Angela, was an innate leader. She drove us hard as a group and had the wonderful talent of being able to push each of us individually to do our best. She was a true leader. We used to say back in college, there are 4 types of people occupying leadership positions. Those you would follow into a fire, those you would walk shoulder to shoulder with into a fire. There were those who do everything they could to avoid the fire, and there were those who gladly push into the fire. The past few months, we've had the opportunity to live in a wonderful live laboratory of leadership to experience across the country and the world. We've seen some companies default to obfuscation and denial. We have seen some act as rulers, tyrants, some as ostriches with their collective heads in the sand, some as servant leaders, some as detached observers, and some as genuinely concerned citizens of the planet who are trying and adapting to take in myriad perspectives to achieve a better world, both short and long term. The other night, I listened to President John F. Kennedy's inaugural address. The speech was a lot longer than I'd remembered, and not quite as inclusive as I'd remembered, but it was still exceptional. The last minute or so was when President Kennedy asked or uttered those famous words, "Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country." Many of us remember those words as if they were spoken yesterday. We have as a country experienced the travails of Vietnam, Watergate, the malaise of the 70s, the fall of the Berlin Wall, the first and second Iraqi wars, the boom bust boom of technology, 9/11, the global financial crisis, electing our first African-American president, slogging through the hydrant of COVID-19, and now a very contentious election. My challenge to each of you is, what would you do to handle the complexity of the challenge we're in today? It's always easier to find fault in the actions or inactions of others. Citizenship in this incredible experiment that we call America is not being a subject whose job it is to endure. It is, in my humble opinion, the responsibility to participate in the debate, listen, agree or disagree, yet work together with the assurance that 350 million of us together are smarter than any one or any 100 acting alone. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jeffrey. Michael Moore, thank you for being on the show today. All right, I appreciate it, brother.
Appreciate the chance.
Thank you for joining us today on Momentum, a stewardship idea. We would
Michael,
like to
thank
thank
you.
our sponsors, the Faith Church and the Faith Visionary Services. If you live in East Oakland, California, please remember the Georgia Otis Food Bank, where we have our food giveaway every Wednesday from 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. That's the Georgia Otis Food Bank, every Wednesday from 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. The food giveaway is located in the parking lot of the Faith Church at 2680 64th Avenue. That is the Faith Church located at 2680 64th Avenue. If you would like to support this podcast financially, please visit us at www.fbcoak.org. That's www.fbcoak.org. Thank you for your time, and please join us again for our next episode of Momentum, a stewardship idea.
Beat Army.
Go Army. Oh, I'm sorry.
Beat
Go
Army.
Navy. Beat Army. All right, guys. Have a great one. See you later. All right,
Thanks,
Michael. Love you, man.
Talk soon.
Loving it.
Stop. Love you guys.
Hey.
Peace.
All right, man. Thanks.